Is that really your idea of how to run a newspaper?
I don't know how to run a newspaper, Mr. Thatcher. I just try everything I can think of.
The 1941 movie Citizen Kane is based on newspaper magnate William Randolph Hearst. He was one of the original practitioners of yellow journalism, a form of reporting where truth and fairness are casualties and a sense of elitism prevails. Tim Wolfemeyer is a journalism professor at San Diego State University. He likes that the UT San Diego is under local ownership because he believes Doug Manchester cares about the region. But he's also concerned about what he calls the paper's mean-spirited viewpoints.
It starts on the editorial page where, we're out to get Filner and we're out to get Obama. We don't want those people reelected, or we don't want these people elected. And so we'll say and do just about anything to keep that from happening. Well, pretty soon you kind of, it may not happen, and I hope it doesn't happen, and really it shouldn't happen. But there's always the possibility, and I think, people might wonder, well, is that kind of mean-spiritedness, one-sidedness, unbalanced coverage or reporting going to seep into the traditional news coverage?
Many longtime readers say it's already happened under Manchester's ownership. They believe he's using the paper to wage a propaganda campaign on matters close to his heart. They point to over-the-top anti-Obama commentary, to front-page editorials endorsing San Diego mayoral candidate Carl DeMaio, and the open championing of the use of the waterfront at the 10th Avenue Marine Terminal to build a sports complex.
Longtime subscriber Christina Schaefer, who works as a biologist, canceled her subscription to the UT this summer because she saw echoes of positions taken in the paper's opinion section in news coverage of downtown development.
I felt bullied almost into a position that I didn't think was necessarily the position of the majority of San Diegans.
Manchester is aware of angry readers canceling subscriptions over news coverage and editorials, but he makes no apologies for the paper's editorial positions.
Listen, we're interested in serving everybody in San Diego because we love the city. I've always said under Ronald Reagan we had Steve Jobs, we had Johnny Cash, and we had Bob Hope. And under Obama, we have no cash, no jobs, and no hope.
However, Manchester says the firewall between news and opinion remains. UT staffers who spoke on the condition of anonymity say UT CEO John Lynch and Manchester are far more hands-on than their predecessors in pitching story ideas, angles, and people to profile. One reporter said, quote, "There's a sort of adolescent mentality that's running the newspaper. Morale is terrible." Others worry about what effect Manchester's insistence on rosy stories will have on the paper's credibility.
We're not interested in managing the news, but we are interested in making sure the news is reported correctly, and that if you could possibly do away with the do you know what I mean? There's always this one little caveat where they point out something negative. And I'm just saying, if it's news to point out negatively, then point it out. But let's look at the glass half full instead of half empty.
But former UT reporter Craig Rose says the paper's quality will suffer if its ownership doesn't understand that's not the role of journalism.
There are armies of public relations people. It is their job to crank out positive news, and they do. And the newspaper's role, or I think, when newspapers are operating at its best, is very often to point out the uncomfortable truths.
But San Diego developer David Malcolm says the public not only needs facts, but a silver lining too.
Everything I get on this thing is negative all day long. Greece is falling apart. Europe's falling apart. Japan is like a bug looking for a windshield to hit and be squished. It is great to have a business entity, a news organization, saying our #1 goal is going to be a cheerleader for San Diego.